Hey everyone, this is Sky McFarlane, and just to let you know that around minute 44, our audio changes. Unfortunately, our really good mic went to sleep and disconnected for some reason, and I really apologize, but please do not let that deter you from listening to the remainder of the podcast. Thankfully, we were recording with two different video cameras, and so we have sound. It's just not as good as the first 44 minutes, so I apologize, and please, again, don't let that deter you from listening to this amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
Hey folks, welcome to Conversations That Matters. We're glad you're going to join us. I have Sky here today as my new assistant. Brittany is on her way, and I'm Michelle Treese. And Sky, what you got to say today?
Just welcome. Yeah, I'm gonna fill in if Brittany shows up. I'm getting out of this seat and letting her sit here. And we've got a great conversation today about arts and meeting a couple folks who work over at ETSU. So I'm excited to learn more about what they're up to. So yeah, we'll let them introduce themselves. So Y'all go for it.
Good morning. I'm Karlota Contreras-Koterbay. I'm the director for ETSU Tipton and Slocumb Galleries. And I'm also a person of color originally from the Philippines who migrated here in Appalachia 19 years ago. And this is now my home, aside from Manila. And I am really proud because last year with the Tennessee Craft Initiative of doing this research on 100 years history of Black Tennessee craft, we have developed the Crafting Blackness Project, which is documenting the 100 years history of African American art here in the state of Tennessee. And it's an ongoing project, a 5-year program that will be touring the state.
Oh, fabulous.
Until 2027.
Right.
And my co-curator.
And I'm Karen Sullivan, and I work at ETSU as a development officer, but I started working with Karlota a few years ago because I have an interest in natural Black hair. And so we did an exhibition together called Detangling the Politics of Black Hair. And I had a great time doing it, helping pick out artwork, and I say that Karlota lets me be her co-curator when really she is definitely the driver. She knows her art. She's actually well known up and down the state. It's really, ETSU has quite a treasure in her, so I'm very happy to be able to co-curate this project, Crafting Blackness, with Karlota. I'm on Karlota's wild ride. She keeps saying it's Karen's and Karlota's wild ride, and it is. But so that's what we're doing, and we picked up artworks, and I've learned a lot this past few months.
Tell us about the exhibit Crafting Blackness that's happening now. Dates, location.
So the Crafting Blackness Initiative is a series of exhibition and publication. And the very first two is the one that Karen and I are co-curating entitled Black Bodies Making Form. So this exhibition, I'm Asian, but I'm also very much into self-representational projects. And so when I'm thinking of this project, I'm like, I want a co-curator from the community. And the first person I thought of is Karen, because we had such a successful project when we did the Detangling, Unraveling the Politics of Hair. And there are perspectives and point of view and nuances that I, as an art person or an anthropologist or an art historian, may know it theoretically, but I really wanted somebody from the community, from the African American community, to really have their voice. Mm-hmm. And so the Black Bodies Making Form is our first two exhibition. It's the inaugural show that is currently up right now at Tipton Gallery until the end of the month. And the second one will be at Slocumb Galleries starting Monday, with a closing reception and a crafting initiative, Crafting Blackness Initiative panel on September 28th, Thursday, from 4 to 7 p.m.
Yeah, it's been such a learning experience. It's really been great. We went from Johnson City. We went straight across state. We left Johnson City, we went to Manchester, we went to Nashville, we went to galleries, we went to people's homes, we went to colleges and universities, and then we went to Memphis, and we did the same on the way to Memphis, and in Memphis, on the way back to Memphis, in Nashville again, on the way back. We went all across the state. It was, but it's amazing the people that we met and the just the different variety of Black crafters across the state. Some just very storied people, very famous people. Bill Capshaw in Nashville. Well, Oak Ridge. In Oak Ridge, and he refers to himself as just a vessel maker. But this man has gotten the Governor's Award. He's gotten awards throughout the years for his beautifully crafted ceramics, and we have a lot of those will be on display at Slocumb. There's a piece at Tipton right now, but so very humble people, and yet doing very detailed and beautiful works. It was amazing to me too to see the people who are more folk artists, I guess, who also think of themselves as it's their mission. They feel that they've been called to do these things, including the famous people like Bill Edmondson.
Yes.
What is a description of a folk artist?
We may need another session for that. But folk artists, self-taught, these are kind of terms that developed in the 1970s, and there's always that hierarchy in art, high art, craft art. But for us, for our project, we really want to celebrate the makers and the craft practitioners rather than focusing on the terms, because the folk art normally are self-taught artists, non-academic based, people who work in their community or use materials from their environment. And with the folk, there's always a double-edged sword in that concept, where there is a certain appreciation of the purity and the wildness or the authenticity, but at the same time, culture is evolving. It is not that simple. It is, yes, they are folks, they are from the common people, from the community, but sometimes by using some of these terms, there is a certain form of derogatory meaning, or kind of an expectation of, they have to be a certain way and we are a certain way. So
or it's less than, that the work is less than. And we decided, we've had long conversations about this, and we decided right off the bat we are not going to get into that. So you might hear me say folk art, but for us it's craft, something that people made with their hands. Maybe they had formal training, maybe they did not, and yet they still produced art. They're still artists. And we want to make sure that we bring these names forward too. One of the things that I was really interested to learn is that you'll go through and see artwork by Black artists or crafters through the years, and it'll say artist unknown, because no one took the time, because they weren't important enough to learn their names. Well, I love that we're naming the names and talking about these people in Tennessee. It had to be limited because that's what the Crafting Black, it's a statewide initiative for 4 years.
For now, we actually already have a lot of requests to expand it to Appalachia and the South and hopefully nationwide. But for now, because this is such an unprecedented project, we're probably one of the first states that really focuses on researching that particular group. And I think what is significant about this project that Tennessee Craft really tried to address is the invisibility and the omissions in history of the African American creatives. And for us, originally it was craft artists. But when we started this project, so the project is really a development of a database, a development of a survey, essay, and exhibition series. And I said, this project that originally was just a 1-year program, I said, we cannot do justice in this amazing project with all the positive and enthusiasm response from everybody, if we really want to make this as something that will make a mark and really elevate, that's how the Tennessee craft wanted to kind of do it, elevate the craft artists, also really provide visibility to our African American artists in the state. It has to be a little bit longer and more complex, and that's why it developed into a 5-year exhibition and publication program.
It's good that it starts here too, because so often people forget that this part of the state even exists. And there is life, exactly east of Knoxville. And so what you'll find at Tipton are a lot of our more local artists, as well as artists from across the state. But we featured quilt makers, we featured people who make shoes, people who make baskets. I mean, there are all sorts of things right along with the ceramicists, right? And it's really worth looking at. And what's really fascinating is we have so much and so many varied things that what you see at Tipton, you won't see at Slocumb. You may see some of the same artists doing totally different things. We've got a lot of really amazing artwork.
I agree with Karen, because like I said, this is such an unprecedented project. You probably will never see an exhibition where you have a William Edmondson. Edmondson is the first African American artist to be exhibited at MoMA in 1937 as a solo show. And that really opened doors afterwards.
1937?
Yes.
As a black man.
As a black man.
As a black man, yeah.
At MoMA.
Yeah. And what it's interesting the things that the people do, the crafters, the makers. Bill Edmondson, he worked for the railroad for years. He was injured and he could no longer do that work, and did some other things for the next few years, and finally just started chipping away at stone, making stoneworks, making gravestones. And his work is I guess the some of the quotes that I read about the 1937 elevation of him at the MoMA talked about his style, the rough-hewn work and everything. And the work that we have of his was loaned to us by Austin P.
Yes.
By their gallery, and the insurance value is well over $100,000. I mean, we have some amazing things in this.
It was really difficult to acquire a Edmondson right now because there's a major exhibition in Philadelphia that has borrowed the William Edmondson in Nashville and other, like the Tennessee State Museum and other venues. Mark Schickler, one of the foremost scholar about Edmondson and also the organizer for the William Edmondson Festival, recommended that we contact Austin P, and they were so kind to let us borrow possibly 3 works, but the other ones were like 200-300 pounds, and we said, we're taking the smallest one that we can carry on the truck. So
I know. In and out, up and down from a box truck across the state of Tennessee.
And aside from the Austin P, Tennessee State University Hiram Van Gordon Gallery also has a huge collection of black art from their TSU alumni. TSU, along with Fisk, is an HBCU institution here in the state, and they have really contributed to a lot of this work. Because when we started the research, people don't always associate themselves as a craft artist, but they're using craft media or craft technique. And on museums, sometimes they don't put the geographic or the ethnicity of their artists. So it's like, where do we find Black Tennesseans in the museums? It was really a challenge. And that's why the database has really become even more exhaustive, because we really want to address that.
How did you begin this journey? Like, I know you guys said, we got to get a truck. And then what? Like, did you MapQuest?
We have a really wonderful itinerary because we were very efficient, because we know a lot of these artists are more senior. They are like, some are historical, so some have passed away, so they're in the museum and institutional collections, like Knoxville Museum of Art lend us their Bessie Harvey, the Reese Museum is lending us the Sammy Nicely collection. So what we did was, rather than shipping, because we wanted to introduce ourselves, this is a long-term program, so I said to Karen, you want to go on a week-long trip with me? Because being the first exhibition, we're establishing ourselves. Some people know us, some people don't, but we really kind of maximize the networks and the institutional partners from those regions to introduce us.
Yeah.
Like, for example, so our itinerary was this. On the first day, we went to Morristown, then Oak Ridge, and then Nashville, then Manchester. Then we based in Nashville for a few days, went to Murfreesboro, then Jackson, and then back to Nashville, and then we went to Austin P in Clarksville, and then went back to Memphis and Jackson, and then
it was a wild ride.
When we came back,
it was a wild ride.
Yeah, we had Knoxville and Chattanooga too.
Wild. And is it the two of you?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're carrying all this, all this art.
Listen, I am old and arthritic. This one is the worker bee here. She loaded, she toted, she lifted, oh my gosh, this is an amazing woman here, and
we rented a van and they gave us a box truck.
Oh gosh.
But it probably worked out better.
We needed the space
because we had to buy these wardrobe boxes, for example, for Hattie Marshall Duncan. She's this amazing artist from Jackson, and the director from the West Tennessee Regional Center, Bill Hickerson, lent us some of her works, and they're tall. And then we have Roger Smith's peach pit sculptures. So he carves these small peach pits.
People and then out of peach pits.
Make huge dioramas, which is like a 4x4.
Yeah. The piece of his we have is a baseball field.
Yes.
And it's it's how big is that?
It's like going to be a 40x40.
40x40. So it's the actual baseball field with stands, with peach pit people in the stands, with people playing ball. I mean, it's just some amazing work. One of my favorites, I have to talk about the hood cloth, because that is one of my favorites. What is Alicia's last name?
Morozic.
Memphis.
Nashville. We're confused because we just went to so many cities.
So she was really interested in historical mud cloth. That's made in Africa using fermented mud and seeds to color the cloth, to make the cloth. Well, she was interested in it. She made it her business to get these materials from Ghana, I believe, to make the cloth. But she decided, instead of getting mud from Africa and fermenting it and going through the process that you use to make mud cloth, she calls it hood cloth because she used the mud from her backyard. And they are beautiful hangings. They go from reds to grays to just amazing work. We talked about Roger Smith and the Peach Pit. Jackie Schlickler,
yes.
That's why she's here, right? The sgraffito. Okay, her work is, she does ceramics, and sgraffito is it's an Italian way of decorating. So she crafts, she makes her vessels, her plates, her bowls. She makes a French butter dish. You'll have to take a look at that at Tipton. We have one of those there. And so she crafts it, and then she scratches in by hand all of the design. So that uncovers the design. So there's color underneath that comes forward through the process. We talked about, Miss Hattie. We talked about Miss Hattie and how we needed the box truck because some of her figures are quite tall. She makes her figures out of paper and glue and water. And she crafts them around found objects like rolls from paper towels, or what she uses eggshells sometimes to make the eyeballs, and she talked about how she bakes them to make sure that there aren't any germs and whatever. But she makes figures of her family. So we have how many figures?
Two of her sisters.
Two of her sisters represented in what she's made and what she's crafted. And then Mr.
Willard Hill.
Mr. Willard Hill. Oh my gosh, this man makes his sculptures out of masking tape and has done it for years and years and years. He has literally hundreds and hundreds of figures in his house, in his shed. Some of them are articulated, some of them swing, some of them are fantastical animals, a lot of them are just people doing various things. And he is 88 years old. We visited him in his home, and he is another one who talked about how his making, his crafting, he felt he was called by God to do this. He sees it again as his mission, and that was a theme that kind of went throughout the whole trip, with people talking about, especially the people in their homes, talking about it really is something from God, or their mission for the world. And even Bill Edmondson.
Yeah, especially the more senior artists, because these are descendants of formerly enslaved communities and families, and there's a lot of trauma and sickness, and how medical facilities or medical help was before. A lot of them have suffered through like Miss Hattie, polio, homelessness, or the job limitations for a Black person in the state growing up, because our study started in the 1920s. So these are people who were born pre World War II, and we have a lot of that where it's almost like a spiritual awakening or a spiritual project for them. It is a liberational project. It's really craft as agency. For a lot of these people, physical and spiritual agency. And the younger, because we really have a range from, the 88, 82-year-old families and mastercraft artists to contemporary artists as young as in their early 20s. Jernisha Onyekwalu and Akinteo Akintobi are probably two of our youngest. One just received her BFA, and the other one is in the MFA program at ETSU. So we have both indigenous, Black Tennessean, and we have migrant Tennessean, Black Tennesseans in the group. And a lot of the younger generation is also grappling with the issue of identity and how do they find themselves, finding a person that they look like. Looking for a role model. And that's why we wanted to focus our exhibition, the very first exhibition, on Black life and also Black bodies. How do Black bodies embody themselves in their work? How do they see themselves, and how do they want to be seen and perceived? We don't want the Aunt Jemima and those stereotypical images of the dolls. We wanted empowered Black selves, and that Tipton, is what we're having Tipton. Both at Tipton and Slocumb.
You can see that in Pam Falls. What does she call that piece?
That mirror?
It's a piece of, it's a Black woman. It's like a bust, and on one side is a woman with Black skin, and on the other side, if you look in the mirror, you see a more light colored Black woman. Same image, but two sides. And to me, that speaks of colorism in our community. And it's just, if you look at another local artist, Jason Flack tends to, his work reflects very much what's going on politically in the world and what's going on, in our area. And then you go to, we went to Memphis. To the Orange Mound. I am abysmally bad at names. I just bite at it so badly. But I do certainly remember the works that I've seen. And the Orange Mound community in Memphis is one that has been, years ago, it was a thriving community. Now it is very downtrodden and has been. I think that there are agencies and people at work trying to build it, to bring it back to what it was. And we have artworks from that gallery and from that effort. There's a quilt, which I think you did see on the wall from Lurlin. Oh, look at this. She got a name. From Lurlin Franklin, who is working with, oh, goodness, and the manager's name is?
Luella Marshall.
Luella Marshall of Orange Mound. Luella, another God-given thing. Luella was driving through the Orange Mound community, and she was looking at trash. I mean, the area was just awful. It was, not being kept up at all. And she said to herself, somebody needs to do something about this. And she says she heard a voice and it said, you do it. You do it. So she gathered together 10 garbage cans, and got community people together to paint them and put them in the community to gather the trash, which then developed with Lurlen's help and with other artists' help into a larger project. We have that first receptacle that is there in Tipton that says Memphis on it. So here we have somebody who's doing community work as well as someone who is also hearing something spiritual. I mean, those themes went throughout. Those themes of, oh goodness, Ludi Amos,
Yes.
Ludi Amos, we have some pieces on loan from her from
Carlton Wilkinson, another Black photographer from Nashville, who photographed the Million Man March in DC a few years ago, and then she created dolls based on that photograph.
They are amazing, felt, created. Wait till you see them. You will see those at Slocumb.
And then you talk about dolls, you cannot forget Aundra McCoy. Aundra also is from Orange Mound, and Orange Mound is historically significant, not just in the state, but in the country. It's one of the earliest African-American neighborhood that was built by the African Americans by purchasing the land. So that is really important in, self-determination. And so Luella Marshall, interestingly, when she thinks about this receptacle, she was one of the, when she was young, and Martin Luther King Jr. went to Memphis for the garbage union strikes, she was there. Wow. And that was kind of an inspiration for her. So this receptacles is rooted from that civil rights movement, that they're still fighting for their community. They're still trying. This time they want to beautify their community. So if the government doesn't collect their garbage, then they'll make beautiful receptacles.
While we were there, they were talking with some of the other artists about just the upkeep of the building, because there's often at the beginning of a project there's all this enthusiasm and, oh yeah, we got to do this, oh yeah, fight for this, and then as the weeks, the months, the years go by, well, the who's going to bake the bread, the bakers get thin on the ground. And so they were talking about how to go about continuing and fixing up the gallery and making sure that it continues to run and to run well. Yeah. Now Aundra, and there is an N in it, Aundra McCoy. She brought us a number of works to exhibit, and we had one of her dolls at Tipton, but at Slocumb you will see a collaborative effort of hers. She collaborated. She said that she told us that she called Sammy Nicely, who was a good friend of hers, and said, hey, let's work together. So Sammy Nicely actually made the heads. He's famous for making a lot of masks and things. He made ceramic heads for the dolls, and then she crafted the dolls right down to including the clothing that the dolls wear. She took these dolls, these particular 2 dolls that I'm talking about, because we do have others, she took them from her wall at home so that we can exhibit them. They are detailed, they are articulated, they are just beautiful. Just beautiful.
That's cool.
We haven't
brings
let
me
you
to
all say a
tears.
word, have we?
I love Sammy Nicely.
And
It just brings me
Sammy
to tears.
is
Yes.
such an influential,
Oh,
such a significant East Tennessean. It's funny because this when you talk about Tennessee, there's the three grand divisions or the three geographical our Crafting Blackness Initiative director Dr. Ernestine Jenkins from Memphis calls it cultural zones: the East, the Middle, and the West. But Willard Hill's benefactor, Bill Nichols, a artist from Manchester, said, "Well, there is a fourth, which is the Black Appalachia, East Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee. We are our own culture here." And Sammy Nicely has influenced so many younger artists. He has trained and just exposed children to the craft, to the ceramic making, to mask making. He made public art. He was based a long time in Atlanta, Georgia, but really he was born in Russellville, and his remains is in Morristown with his family still living in the area. He also, when he was alive, was a very active collector of African American art and African art. And some of these are now at the Fisk University and our very own Risk Museum. And director Rebecca Prophet they just received a grant from the Luce Foundation to really develop educational programming for that collection, and we are partnering with them in this project as well. With Sammy, it's like he is like an artist. He really is like an inspiration. When you see him visually, he's just so striking with his dreadlocks. And then he started making this dashiki, which during the civil rights movement, during the Black is Beautiful movement, Black Power, there was that kind of.
We all had our dashikis back in the day, man. We just
Yeah.
still got, yeah. And I think those things stick with you, and those are things that we came across in our late teenage years, and in our 20s, and I think we've carried them through now, so that we're interested in hey, I'm Black and I'm proud, and that it's almost like there's a new, like a renaissance of art, of Black art, of BIPOC and Black art. Definitely in our little corner of Northeast Tennessee, with people recognizing that they are artists. They're not just, I just do my little doodles or whatever. It's art. You're an artist, and guess what? We know your name.
Yeah,
we know your name, and not only that, we're going to see that other people know it too.
Yes, there are so many artists. We have hundreds of Black artists in this database that we will publish live on a website by mid 2024. We will also have the publication. So every year until 2026, we will be publishing catalogs where we have invited Black scholars and other Appalachian scholars to contribute on topics. For example, Javita Wells, she is the co-founder of the From Africa to Appalachia exhibition series that Sammy Nicely organized at the Rose Center in Morristown for years. So she is contributing to this. KMA chief curator Stephen Wicks, for example, he is Caucasian, but KMA has the biggest collection of the Delaney brothers. Joseph and Buford Delaney's work, as well as they have a significant collection of Bessie Harvey as well. So he will be talking about those, as well as Fritz Massaquoi, a African royalty who migrated to Knoxville decades ago. And
beautiful jewelry.
We have one piece from Fritz through his nieces, and his nieces are now craft practitioners making jewelries and necklaces. Woki Massaquoi Wicks. And her sister Tobertha. So it's really interesting because they are there, but people don't always take the time to really celebrate that and acknowledge that. And there is that need. So
and they're not just unknown artists.
Yeah, they're not like artists once known. They have names and they have purpose, they have significance, and they have communities. And we also celebrate the family and the kinship of craft making, like our very own 82-year-old Magdalena Story. We have her quilts, her mother's quilt, her daughter and son's quilts, and
the quilt pattern from her grandmother. I mean, that was one of the things, the generational arts that we, well, I won't say we uncovered, that we saw as we were looking at different artworks, different craft works from our individuals.
And I think it's putting the spotlight because they've always been there. They're making, and we are just finally putting the spotlight on them that they deserve. Hattie Marshall Duncan, we have her daughter's work and her son's work as representative, not just of that familial passing of tradition, but also Hattie is a governor's art awardee and also a master craft artist recognized by the Tennessee Arts Commission. So we do have this master craft artist who teaches to other younger generation to pass the skill and the technique and the knowledge that they have developed.
Well, and that's such a, when you think about Appalachia, you think about like these traditional crafts that get passed down generationally. But I'm not going to lie, you picture white families doing that. So I think it's so cool to point out that they're not the only ones who are doing that.
Yes, I agree with you. Around 15 years ago, we probably, at Tipton Gallery, may be the very first to exhibit entitled Black Appalachians. So we have curated that show with Sammy Nicely, Lydia Wilson's work. We have this photographer based in DC now, and other like ETSU alumni. And people don't think of Appalachia and think about Black people or queer people. And this is a braggart, but we last year received an award of excellence from the Tennessee Association of Museums for our Black and Queer Appalachia exhibition series. Because they exist. We exist, the BIPOC community in Appalachia. We are this community. Frank Walker, the Afro-Latin poet who coined the term Afro-Latin, when he was researching about who is an Appalachian, he said, it does not cover me because it's white mountain people. But I'm an Appalachian. Where am I in history? So they coined the term Afro-Latin after that.
Right, and he has several books. He has a book of poetry called Afro-Latin, and also then there's a children's book, which is called
Frank X. Walker.
Which I actually had to buy one of those books just because it's colorful and it's an alphabetical thing, so it goes through from A to Z, naming some of the famous Black people from Afro-Latin from A to Z. It's a children's book, also I guess
entitled
an
A
book.
Is for Afro-Latin.
A is for Afro-Latin.
And we had a book signing and reading at the gallery last April for him.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So I hope we do. There's not, I hope we do. Over the next few years, this definitely is going to continue. And I really do think I see just kind of a resurgence, or just people are very interested. And when I say people, Black people are very interested, white people are very interested, Asian people, Hispanic people, BIPOC communities in general. We are all very interested in what we produce and celebrating the good things of in our lives, as well as documenting the not so good things. That's what why I was saying you'll see things that talk about, or works that may speak to you of any number of things, like Ludi Amos's figures of the Million Man March. Wait till you see them. It's amazing. And if you look, I hope that you also get interested, like I did, just learning who these various artists are, and then not only the works that we've picked for this exhibition, but to go out then later and Google them and see some of the other things that they have done. I mean, Ludi Amos, the piece that she loaned us about the Million Man March is amazing to see. But she also does even more mundane things, like There's a bed. There's one of the figures that she's done that's got a bed with about 3 or 4 people in the bed, laying head to toe, toe to head, like you would do back in the country days on a quilt. And then there's another of a woman just very animated dancing, frozen in a dancing figure. We hope that this will whet the appetite of people to look further and to look deeply at what we are presenting, because there are so many details that if you don't really look very closely, who's the young man who made the figure? I'm not even going to mess up his name because I'll mess it up. I don't know. Call the man's. I know. I got nothing to tell you.
There's a lot.
He has a bust of a black figure, and I was looking at it, and at first I thought this is a black man, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a black man. It could be a black woman, but there are nails in the head of this figure, and it's on a wooden block. And when you look at it, if you look at it very closely, you'll also see on the wooden block a depiction of a slave ship, and you can see the people, the enslaved people, lined, stacked like cordwood in it. I mean, just so many different points of view, color, black and white, ceramic, fabric, sculpture.
And the hybridity that really was symbolized on that piece of the middle passage and the contemporary black man with the nails that looks like halo, but at the same time it also references to wooden figures in Africa that they would put the nails as a spiritual symbol against a lot of the negative spirits and things like that. But for them to really kind of get these various influences and looking back in African culture, and I think this is really important in the African American plight, really, for survival, for identity, of having that pride and that connection to a land far away, that it is valid, that it is significant, and they are valid, even if there was a migration, because this country was born out of migration. Yes. Both black and white communities migrated. The indigenous communities here, the Native Americans, we are all migrants here. And when we think about what is America now, who is American, we cannot really deny the fact that we are migrant communities. We are a migrant nation. And I think the most amazing part of this country is that celebrating and really getting the best out of these different cultures, different influences, and recognizing it and providing that fertile land for this to really flourish. And unfortunately, there are also violent history and traumatic history, and we should not close our eyes on those things. One of my favorite, because even if we have a sub-theme, we also have like sub-themes. And Karen and I have talked about the precarity of Black life. Mm-hmm. This may be a craft show, but you will see some political work, like Samuel Dunson's 24-hour news network.
Wait till you see it. Yeah, that's amazing. And, so as we were developing what we wanted to do, and I was learning how to curate a show with Karlota, we talked about what does craft actually mean in a BIPOC, in a Black community. Well, there's a craft that comes from wanting to create a thing of beauty. There's craft that combines the two with utility. You craft a chair. You need a chair to sit on, so you make one, and you make one with what you have at hand. We have our famous basket makers in Charleston, and using what's the medium?
Sweetgrass
using
in South Carolina.
Well, yes, and they're beautiful and they're durable, but they had a utility. Quilting. Beautiful quilts, wonderful quilts, quilts that speak to this, quilts that are a picture of something like the one that we have from Lurleen Franklin at Tipton, and yet quilts also then from the family, the story family, quilts which started out as something to keep you warm, something so that you don't freeze to death in the winter. And what were they made from? Scraps of this, scraps of that. So there's utility, there's function, there's and just expression. There's expression. There's the spirituality. There's all these different themes.
And there is memory. All these works are visualizations of memories. They are holders of memories for these families, for these artists, and we want to really kind of celebrate
because
that.
of the altar that we have from Alicia.
Yeah, Morosic. So some of our artists, two Nashville-based, Elishaba and Samuel, both have this kind of altar installation made of bamboo. One is Elishaba's, where it's standing on a mirror with bamboo stakes and some flowers and a picture of her great-grandmother, former enslaved woman. And then on the other side is Samuel's kind of branches that represents his forefathers, and then that kind of symbolism of the tree and the branches and the roots. It's really celebrating family identity and that memory and that solidarity. But at the same time, there is a very contemporary feel to this work. It's not like these are
Dusty pieces.
Yeah, it's not like trapped in time. Yeah. These are contemporary. This is them visualizing history in a very dynamic way.
Wow. Yeah, we really invite you to, as you come and view the exhibition now and through the years, to really stop and really look deeply at what you're seeing, at what's presented there, because art is to be experienced by the individual, and what you get out of it is not necessarily what the artist meant you to get out of it. Maybe you get more. Maybe you build on what they actually meant. That's these makers have provided for us lots of room, lots of places for thought and development of, celebration of self, memories. As I look at quilts, I remember quilts certainly from being back in the day and laying under these heavy quilts, thinking, "Oh my gosh, Grandma, I hope you get under the quilt. It weighs 17 pounds, and when you get underneath it, it is cold as it could possibly be. Now, when it warms up, really nice, and you're set, but you're also under 17 pounds of fabric.
Hey, weighted
thank
blankets
goodness.
are a thing.
And thank goodness for it, rather than freeze to death. Right?
Yes, and also, there is in a way they said like a renaissance of Black culture during the Harlem Renaissance, and then there's the civil rights, Black power, but with the Black movement recently, with a lot of the violence of and injustices of the Black body, and there is a movement to go back and really advance the Black gaze. And I think in this exhibition, you will see that Black gaze, a celebration of Blackness, and really the assertion of Blackness without having to take somebody's pie slice. This is just us being Black or colored people, or people of communities of color, and
asserting your view, asserting your life, asserting parts of your life, and what you make of it is your business. This is what I'm putting out there. What do you think? I don't care.
We really doing this. We are guided by bell hooks, Blackness, the theory of Blackness, that kind of is now developing to the Black gaze, that Black scholars are really trying to kind of provide theoretical perspective in the conversation about Black culture. And one for me also is another inspiration is Nikki Giovanni. Last year we brought her here back in ETSU. She's a Knoxville born Black poet, a treasure of Tennessee. And some of her earlier works, and not just the poetry, but the prose is like just so powerful. And you know, she really kind of looks at the boy's double consciousness and really kind of think about that critically and how that really affects the Black person and the Black self of being Black but being in a majority of a white culture, and how do you deal with that. And it's just so inspiring, all these Black scholars. So we're almost like looking at our project as the 1619 project in Black craft, because we are really trying to provide a platform for Black scholars to contribute their thoughts and
To tell your
voices.
story, we keep talking about, we
Yeah.
kept referring to them as, these are visual griots.
Yes.
They are telling the stories in a visual way. It's just,
I think in this area, I've seen a real change in the presence of Blackness in Washington County. I retired about 7 years ago, and when, you know, the first time of being out in the world, and, you know, any time I'm like, where are the Black people? And where are the Black folks?
we thought that when we moved here too.
Yeah. And I think with these kind of programs and just so many things, we've got Umoja, we've got other groups in the area that are making this presence. I'm beginning to see
More and
those
more.
Black and brown folks. I
Well,
want to
I-
see more brown folks.
What I am really loving to see are the collaborative
Yes.
efforts, because I think that, it is disgusting to me, the whole crabs in a barrel
Mhm.
phenomenon. You know, you can't get ahead because if you get ahead, I can't get ahead. And I think that's part of the fear that's kind of pervasive around our country anyway, on lots of different levels. which
Yes.
I'm not going to go into, but
That's a whole other
but I'm really heartened to see the collaborations, like for example, the production of crowns between Umoja and the McKinney Center. Wonderfully
Wonderful.
received, beautifully executed. The Langston Center and ETSU and the different departments, the art departments of Slocumb and Tipton Galleries.
Yes.
Tipton Gallery is continually having community shows, featuring community artists. I mean,
Wonderful.
it's something that we hope will continue forever.
Yes.
Well, and the more you see that in the newspaper and on the news station or pictures on Facebook, the more you see someone who looks like you, you're going to feel comfortable showing up.
Exactly. And I think a lot of our Black folks in the past have not seen a lot of us showing up, so therefore I'm not showing up. But now that you see this, when it's out there, Black gaze and crafting Blackness and Black in Appalachia, and you see more and hear more about it, I think Black folks are showing up, which I love, because I do feel like there is in this area there is that a little bit of an ideal of, I'm just going to go to work and go home and go to church and go back home and I'm good. And I need to see more of you. I need you to come out. I need you to come to these shows. I need you to come to these galleries. I need you to go on ETSU's campus even though you're not a student, and see and hear some amazing things that are going on. Because I know me as a Black woman, I need that. I need that outside impact. And I would hope other people do too, so they will come out and enjoy these things. But it's changing. It's moving in a wonderful, wonderful direction.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It really
Glad
is.
to
It
know,
really is.
because we really, I think that kind of providing that platform for visibility makes our communities feel safer, feel
Yes.
more inclusive, feel like we're, because Appalachia is one of the most stereotyped, negatively stereotyped communities in the country, which is very unjust. And within that micro community, you have even more minority
Right.
groups: LGBTQ, Black, Asian, Latino.
Yes. That are doubly stereotyped.
Yes. So it's like we really are trying to address that, and by providing this positive and empowered visibility projects, I think it's really important. And I think our ETSU provides a very good, because before you find the Black folks in the athletic department of ETSU, but now it's like in different departments. Our art and design have the LGBTQ, the Black and the Asians and the Latinos, the sciences, but we're also becoming an arts university where the arts is providing this opportunity for collaboration.
And see something that you've never seen before. Have a new thought. What? A new thought?
Okay.
Yes. Have a new thought. Open your mind. You don't have to be afraid of a new thought. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. They're powerful. But I love the collaborations. We were talking about that even with ETSU and Umoja. People ask us all the time, why did we move the festival? It was in August. Why is it in September? Well, we moved it so that we can have a collaboration with ETSU. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to have something where you're inviting students if the students aren't there.
Right.
So, just collaborations on all sorts of different levels. But this is this art project, Crafting Blackness, is huge. It's huge, and it's providing points of view from all across the state, from different points of view, from young people, as we said, from our more senior people. They invited us into their homes. A lot of these people.
That's what I wanted
showed
to
us
ask.
their process.
You've done art shows before. You've dabbled in it, but to go collect art from the artists themselves, can you just talk about that a little bit more? Because I feel like that totally changes the experience.
I think for everyone, it was a very different experience because not a lot of gallery directors or curators will drive a truck to pick up artworks from people. They will give you an account number for FedEx or UPS, and that's it. And then when it's damaged, you claim insurance. But for us, it was really important to establish a relationship. We wanted to introduce ourselves and at the same time know them, know where they lived, how their families are, meet their grandchildren, their wives, their husbands, their children, because they are people first and foremost, and artists. And we wanted them to feel like we care about you. So we wanted to put a face on the name, and then we printed some beautiful letters. But at the same time, let them know that we're here with our packaging and boxes because we're gonna take care of your work. Because a lot of people, artists are always treated like, oh, would you like to show for us for free or donate your work?
Because you need the exposure.
Yes, it's like artists need livelihood. They are professionals. They needed to be treated as such. And so I think that experience for them was very new, very different. And curators normally would visit and know their artists, but to collect work the way we did, and then we're gonna return the same way, and then we're gonna come back again because in March 2024 we'll be in Middle Tennessee and Murfreesboro and Nashville with Tennessee State University and Middle Tennessee State University during the Tennessee Association of Museum Conference. We're gonna have 2 exhibitions of the Black bodies making form and materiality of craft. So it's like we wanted to explain to them what the project is all about, but we also wanted to know who they are, not just on what we read about them.
And we learned, for example, watching Mr. Willard Hill, watching him craft some of these figures out of masking tape, and just talking to him about where he got his inspiration. Well, from daily life, some just fantastical things, because some of them are really fantastical creatures, like, ooh, what is that? And then there's also little monkeys and dogs, but a lot of his inspiration also comes from the Bible. He is, as he said, he's a very spiritual man, a very religious man, and he would listen to the sermons, the preaching, when he went to services, and he would come back and craft, David and Goliath. I mean, there are pieces like this that he has done. Listening to Bessie Harvey. Not only did she tell us how she crafts her figures, but she showed us her, I don't know what to call it, her paper mache, her
Hattie
clay.
Marshall Duncan she developed her own paper clay.
Yes.
No.
Yes, and Bessie Harvey used to use the tree barks, into figures that she believes are imbued with spiritual. Those are her little people.
Right, and that's Bessie Harvey. Now
Hattie is the paper clay.
Hattie is the paper clay, but she showed us her bucket of clay, and she showed us how she mixes it, and with the drill, because it's so thick. And then she showed us how she puts the figures together, as did Mr. Willard. We watched him as he kind of wrapped a few, and he said, well, you see this piece of plastic, found plastic, I'm going to make this into so-and-so, and this is how I craft this, and, really, and then you get to, Bill Capshaw, who says, I'm just a vessel maker.
There was a lot of listening.
I'm just a vessel.
With our travel.
That was my thing. I am hoping there will be a documentary of.
I was gonna say, can I come next time and video it or take pictures?
Would love to.
Listen, you don't know what you're saying.
No, I will invite you when I come next. You are welcome to. But are you ready?
I don't know. Maybe I'll drive.
Maybe you'll follow.
The stories are amazing.
They really are.
I went to the Tipton, and folks out there in listening land, you gotta go, and we'll give you an opportunity to tell location and dates and stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I spend the majority of my time reading whatever I can, if it's about the artist and whatever.
Right.
And the stories that you guys have shared right here, they have to be somewhere out there for people to hear and read.
So there will be catalogs and coloring books, and the artists were requested for their artist bios and artist statements. So those will be present, and we also even invited a few essays that were already published about them so that we can republish in the catalogs.
Perfect.
So we requested some publications and some of the reviews about them, because we really wanted people to know them, to know the artists. We as curators didn't want to just talk for them. We wanted them to talk for themselves.
Yes.
And I think through their art, they visualize their voices, and through the exhibition, we created a platform for all those polyphony of narratives and beautiful narratives to be really shown.
And just, oh my goodness, just stories from their lives, and talking about oh goodness, the things that they went through that brought them to where they are now. Miss Hattie, talking about having polio as a young child, and so therefore being inside while her siblings were outside working in the fields, she's inside. Siblings didn't care for that too much, did they? So, and just talking about then how her life developed. At one point in time, she was homeless, and yet now she is, I'd say, a respected maker of beautiful works. She talked about certainly her sister. I mean, that's why Karlota mentioned earlier, we have a familial theme through. So she makes her figures, and they're figures of her sister, of her brother, of different family members, but also teaching to her daughter, teaching to her grandson how to make these things, and it really has been a very rewarding. I had to step out of my comfort zone And I'm very glad I did.
Pretty amazing. Just incredible.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful.
We've
work.
already been talking for over an hour, so I wanted to just give you that little warning because we always give you a chance to ask one another a question if you have one. If you have one in mind, if one comes up. And then, of course, we definitely want to get the details on how people can go experience and view these things too. So.
Oh, this is funny. I'm like, so what is our next exhibition concept? Because all of these exhibitions, we have 2 to 4 a year on different venues, and every venue is either a different co-curator, but always a Black co-curator, and also a different sub-theme because we wanted to know what the theme or what the interest of the institution is. So
Well, I do have opinions.
that's why you're my partner.
I asked Karlota, well, why did you choose me to co-curate this exhibit? Because I can't remember names, and she said it's because I do have a point of view, and it's been a really great experience to look at the arts and the crafts that we've seen through my point of view, and yet at the same time getting their feedback too, and that it's just a a synergistic thing, and then it grows. It's exponential and synergistic. And so what's going to be the next thing? I don't know, but it'll be something.
And when you were asking about our travel, that travel will not have been made possible too without the partners, because it was, yes, the 2 of us in the truck, but we have so many support system that before we made this travel made those connections for us. Because when you do an invitation, for example, in a museum or an artist, and it's a blind email, normally it goes to spam or they kind of don't look at that. But the good thing about us is we have history with a lot of people. I've worked with craft and the Black community, Black artists through the last decade and a half. And that really provided a kind of a reputation for us that the artists trust that we're not just gonna take their work, and because there is always
a fear of
opportunistic issue where artists are always kind of taken advantage of, and that was something that I think thankfully we didn't have to deal with, because people do trust us, and because their friends who have been supporting them for years know us and recommended us. Like, for example, the Story family, Pam Faw is their neighbor, and if it wasn't for Pam Faw, we probably would not have access to those work. Miss Hattie, we had Bill Nickerson that I have met at the Tennessee Arts Commission grants program, and we would go see each other every now and then on events, and that really helped.
And you'll get to meet a number of these people on the 28th. A number of artists are coming in from across the state to view the exhibit. I was amazed and happy at how excited they were to have their works.
They're very excited to see.
It will be very, very nice.
And this will be, let's go ahead and get those details.
Yeah.
So this September the 28th, what is the event in the location?
So the September 28th is a Crafting Blackness Initiative panel where we will have several speakers, including Bonnie Matthews. She used to work as the community and grant program organizer for Tennessee Craft. She is the co-director for Crafting Blackness. Daryl Carter, our Dr. Carter is with Humanities Tennessee, also the director for Black American Studies at ETSU and associate dean for inclusion. And we also have Bridget Jones, former curator at the Tennessee State Museum and now assistant executive director at the Arabica National State Park. We also have different focus essay contributors like Rebecca Prophet, the Reese Museum director, Jovita Wells, who contributed from Africa to Appalachia, Mark Schickler.
And that's from 4 to
4 to 6 at the Ball Hall Auditorium in campus. So that's the art department building. If it's located in 232 Sharon Drive with the roundabout or the cul-de-sac. We are like a few meters past the cul-de-sac. But there will be parking available in campus.
So that's 4 to 6.
That's
and
4 to
then-
6, and then at 6 o'clock we will have the closing reception for the Black Bodies Making Forum at Slocumb Galleries. During this time, from 5 to 7, Tipton Gallery will also be open, so people can actually see both exhibitions.
And you can go to Tipton. Well,
Tipton is open Thursdays and Fridays, 5 to 7 p.m. The exhibition that opened in September 1st is until 29th of September. If people in the community wants to see it outside the Thursday and Friday 5 to 7, they can actually email me or call me and make an appointment. And we do open by appointment. The Slocumb Galleries is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sometimes we will have requests after hours, and we do accommodate that. As long as they let us know, we will make arrangements.
and you can find that information just by going to the ETSU website and plugging in Slocumb Galleries, or you could plug in Karlota Contreras-Koterbay.
So now parking is a crazy thing at ETSU. So what would you suggest for parking, or better times for parking at Slocumb?
After 3 o'clock is
After
best
3.
time, because university school, after 3:30, not after 3 o'clock,
There you go.
after 3:30, because the 3 o'clock people are being picked up. But after 3 o'clock, that parking lot is almost empty, and that's one of the biggest visitor parking nearest to Ball Hall.
Okay.
Some people who might be elderly or some who have handicap may have to be
Dropped off
at the roundabout, so they can walk to the building, nearer to the building. There's also handicap parking at Gilbreth that they can just kind of walk a few meters to Ball Hall. But those two are the parking spaces. There is a drive-through parking along University Parkway between Pine Street and another street that they can just drive and get a parking permit.
And downtown, it's downtown Johnson City. There's a lot across the street, across University Parkway.
Yeah, because Tipton Gallery is located at 126 Spring Street, which is between Buffalo and Rome, and there are two big parking lots between those two streets along State of Franklin. So they just walk a little bit. Sometimes there are spaces just across the street in Spring Street too.
And if you're not an ETSU student or employee, it is recommended to get a parking permit,
Parking permit.
pass from our security office on campus.
Yes. And if there's handicap accessibility issue, we also have accommodations. So just let us know, and we will try to provide those.
Perfect. This has been fabulous.
Yes.
But I think these guys beat the record on number of questions that we asked off our list.
None.
Because I asked none.
But but that's okay. I'm
That's
happy.
the way it is.
Yes.
That's the way you're doing it.
Yes.
It's a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Yes.
Incredible.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank
Yeah.
you for this opportunity.
Yes.
Awesome.
What's happening? What's coming up that we can talk about? We got this information from Slocumb and Tipton.
Is that considered part of the diversity and inclusion conference at all?
We're not officially part of it,
Okay.
but we are having the panel during that time. So there is kind of equal
Right.
Opportunity.
advertising
Right.
for both.
Yeah.
So we are advertising them and they're advertising us.
But it's not a formal part
Yeah.
of the conference.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right. But that is happening around
That's
that same
happening.
time. We're actually presenting.
We are presenting on Friday
We're presenting
At
about
1:15.
this program.
about conversations that matter. Look for information coming in the future about a bench dedication at the McKinney Center.
Yes.
So we haven't released the details on that yet, but we're going to be honoring the Booker T. Washington educators and faculty and staff with a bench dedication later this year. So keep an ear out for that. So
And that's the former elementary school for Black students that is now the McKinney Center.
Yes.
So that's the connection.
Yeah.
So,
But
yay.
that's all we've got. So we'll just say bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks for
you.
joining
Bye,
us.
thank you.
Awesome.
That was great.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was fabulous.
That was so
guys.
cool.
I mean, truly.